Hey guys, it's Pete from Pete for Anxiety here, the mental health podcast, breaking the stigma that mental health is talked about. Welcome in today's episode. Before we get started today, we need to cover a few things really quick. Let's talk about the Pete for Anxiety Patreon first off. It's only $1, guys. $1. What does $1 get you? $1 gets you into the exclusive episodes I am recording currently. I'm actually focusing on certain different diagnoses of things to show you guys what it actually looks like as it manifests in a person. So why not for $1, judges? Yeah, they said $1. I just checked with them too. See, they said it was okay. It was $1 anyways. Let's also talk about the Oracle Talk Radio Networks app. In case you can't be here live listening to me, watching this video, supporting the show, you can listen to it on the radio app. Why not? It connects us live to our 365 radio. Just go to your app stores and download the Oracle Talk Radio Network. You'll see the big old Oracle Talk Radio Network app logo right on there. Download it and it'll connect you to me, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, to Pete vs. Anxiety when I'm live doing my thing right here, informing the world and raising mental health awareness. So where are you going to be? 10 a.m. Of course. Come on. We just talked about this. Pay attention for once. Damn. Do y'all know how to listen? And as always, guys, like, follow, and share the YouTube channel. If you guys like what you're seeing, leave some comments, man. We want to know. I want to know if you like what we're on. You want to be on the show? Let me know. Hit me up at PeteVersusAnxietyPod@gmail.com. And as always, guys, enjoy the show. And by the way, did I mention to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure because some of y'all are hard of hearing in the back, may have to yell louder or get a megaphone or something. But, anyways, let's get today's show started. Y'all have a great one. Enjoy. Welcome in, guys, to another exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety, the mental health podcast breaking the stigma. Now, mental health is talked about enough. My guest today is the award-winning author of the book Bridesmaid, a Memoir, Miss Mia J. Hanks. Mia, how you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you. Like I said, me and I were discussing a little bit before we even started. I told her I was excited. I saw her information for being a prospect guest, and I was just like, gotta have her. I don't care. So, Mia, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I'm Mia Hanks, and I'm the author of the book Bridesmaid. It's a memoir about my experiences with a covert narcissist. I was married to a covert narcissist for 29 years and got out of that about 2 years ago and decided to write a memoir, hopefully to just help raise awareness about narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and, just help other people out there that might be going through the same thing.
Yeah, and you know what? That was the other thing too. I haven't had anybody on here about that subject, so it's great that you're here to talk about that one because I'm trying to cover everything possible. So I'm like, hey, memoir. I love memoirs. I was telling Mia in the post production here that I was basically reading Erica Campbell's book, and she'll be on next week. And I've been reading hers, and I told Mia, I'm like, well, now I got to read yours. After reading this one, I'm reading now. I'm like, now I got to read another one. I'm down. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think memoirs are interesting because you really get an insider. Well, the reason that I wrote mine was to provide that insider point of view. You can read books written by therapists and psychologists all day long, and while the information is good, it's just very academic. So to be
Mm-hmm.
able to see things from an insider point of view and get that emotional response, I think that memoirs are really good for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think it gives you I'd like it better than, like you said, it's more than it's just kind of like just somebody telling you facts. It's somebody telling you their personal story. And then you can connect to that person because you're like, damn, I understand some of these things this person's dealing with, and it's your own thoughts too. It's like, because nobody can tell you what you're thinking. You could tell people, but this book actually helps people realize, okay, this is what she was dealing with. These are the things she's dealing with that people didn't know.
Yeah, it really does give a completely different viewpoint. And it really, my book kind of delves into the day to day. What does day to day life look like with a narcissist? You can read the personality traits, characteristics, but
Hmm.
how does that manifest into day to day life? So that's what I'm
I
trying
love
to
it.
illustrate. Yeah.
I love it, man. That's exactly what I'm talking about too. Is that it's you can talk about it all day, you can read it all day, but what does it actually look like in a person? Because some of those traits don't come through. Just because they list everything doesn't mean it's going to check off every boxes.
Right.
So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about your story then? Kind of give them a little rundown, little feel for what you dealt with on a day-to-day basis. Just give them an idea, because a lot of people probably don't know what a covert narcissist is, anyways.
Yeah, so I think everybody, is familiar with the term narcissist.
Hmm.
It's really something that's overused. We like to call people who are really self-confident and perhaps arrogant. We like to call them narcissists. That's not the case. This is really narcissism is a personality disorder, and these people are pretty insidious. So my ex-husband is a covert narcissist, meaning that to the outside world, he's humble, he's kind, he's generous, very empathetic. Everybody thinks he's great, father of the year, husband of the year. Behind closed doors, he's none of that. And so that's sort of, that's the terminology, covert narcissist. They are covert, they're very sneaky with their abuse. I basically got married when I was 21 years old, super young, very naive, not a lot of world experience, and found myself sort of swept up in this. I didn't realize this was abusive, his manipulation, his control. Um, Early on, I think I saw it as, he was really good at just being in charge of things, and I didn't see it necessarily as a bad thing, although something felt off.
Hmm.
As time went on, narcissists don't get better with age; they get worse, and every year was a little bit worse, a little bit worse. And yeah, 29 years. I kind of reached a breaking point. Really, my physical health was suffering with all the stress I was living under, and fortunately was able to untangle and find my way out of that. So I feel really lucky. A lot of people don't end up not getting out of these relationships for a multitude of reasons. So I just feel really lucky that I was able to find my way out.
Yeah, and I think your picture of the bird cage on there, it 100% describes exactly what you're saying. You're basically trapped in a prison of some sort, or in a cage, like, because he had so much control over everything. And I get it too. When we're young, we make decisions. We make, hey, we think we know the world at that age, and then we find out we don't know anything. And a lot of people, sometimes it's just something that happens, because I was trapped with a person for 15 years, and she was had did gaslit me and everything else and stuff like that. And she was trying to
Yes.
be very controlling, but she was a compulsive liar too, though. She liked to make up things, like she'd tell everybody different stories and things,
Yes.
and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like it's scary when you hear people saying it, but then it feels so relieving that someone else has dealt with something that I've dealt with. So now it makes sense, and then I can relate to these people, because it's like, hey, man, they've been through some of these things I've been dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is helpful to know that there are other people out there.
Hmm.
When I was in this, I really didn't, kind of assumed, obviously that this wasn't the case, but I assumed I was the only person,
Yeah.
and it makes you fearful to reach out to anybody because you think, well, no one's going to understand this. And everybody thinks he's so great. So how am I supposed to tell someone that he's abusive? Nobody's going to believe me. So yeah, it is, you feel very alone. It's very isolating.
It is, and I think that's what they're trying to do. Isn't that technically they're trying to
It
keep you
is.
isolated so they can control the situation and things like that. And some of the other traits, guys, I'm looking at are self-centeredness, hypersensitivity to criticism, desire for recognition and validation, passive aggressive behaviors, tendency to adopt victim mentality, and the other one says higher levels of anxiety, depression, and emotional negative emotions compared to overt narcissism.
Right. And so the victim mentality is interesting
Hmm.
because that's not how you would perceive a narcissist.
Yeah.
They are these larger than life on top of the world. But the covert narcissists love to play the victim.
Hmm.
They love to garner sympathy anytime they can. And so that's why it makes other people just don't see that person as a quote unquote narcissist. So it's yeah, it makes it very difficult for the victim to ever gain enough support.
Yeah, it also says, when I'm looking at here, because I'm using this search perplexity I'm using right now. It's a real great tool. It also says covert narcissists may appear shy or reserved, and the reason why it says is because their traits are less obvious. So maybe that's a tactic they use. So that's why when you hear the victim mentality thing, they're just kind of like, they're, you know what I mean, they're real reserved, so people don't know exactly what's going on.
Yes, definitely. They present as anything but a narcissist.
Right.
So they are, as the term says, they're covert.
Yeah, definitely. And and it's crazy, because when you say that, the first thing I'm thinking about is I've been watching Dexter. It's like, Dexter had a double life. Like, nobody
Yes.
knew exactly what he was doing in a disguise. And that's the first thing I thought of as soon as you started saying covert, and I looked it up to see what that is. I was like, oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Dexter Morgan's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, it really is. It is like a double life, you know, how they present outside and how they present behind closed doors
Hmm.
are polar opposite. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's crazy though because a lot of people hear the term narcissist, like you said, they do overuse it. Everyone wants to call everybody a narcissist, but no one really knows what it is. You know.
yeah. I mean, it really is. These people are, you know, it goes far beyond just being arrogant or being
Hmm.
thinking that you're really great. It's very, it's their personality. You know, it is a personality disorder, NPD, a diagnosable personality disorder. The problem is most of these people never get diagnosed because in order to be diagnosed, you have to be evaluated, right? And they think that they believe that they are never the problem. The problem is always everybody else.
Hmm.
So the fact that they would even subject themselves to being evaluated for a disorder goes against everything that they believe. So we really don't know how prevalent NPD is. I've read 2% of the population, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's just those are just the people that want to admit maybe they have an issue. For the most part, you know, these
Yeah.
people don't think they have anything wrong with them.
Of course they don't. You don't because you think of it like like an addict. An addict will say they don't need help, and you can't help somebody that doesn't want help. So a
Right.
narcissist basically is kind of like an addict in some ways because they're like, well, I don't want any help. Why? There's nothing wrong with me. Like you said, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not the problem. You're the problem, and it kind of goes into gaslighting a little bit too. If you
It
think about it,
is.
because like you're trying to convince the other person, like me, I'm not the problem. It's you. You try to make them think they're crazy, basically. For anybody who doesn't know what gaslighting is, that's basically essentially what it is that they're making you feel like you're the one that's being the one that's crazy. Like my ex would do that to me all the time. She tried to convince me that I'm the one going crazy. Oh, you're not noticing things. There's nothing going on. You're just seeing these things are just making up in your head. I'm like, no, I'm seeing A, B, and C, and you're telling me, oh no, 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 no. You're just making it up. It's okay. Or
They
they
like to
trigger you.
say, yeah, they like to say you're remembering things wrong, you know, or your
Yes.
reaction
Yes.
isn't normal. My ex-husband would always say to me, "You're too sensitive." And if you were a normal person,
Oh,
you know, what I said wouldn't have bothered you. And then you start thinking, well, maybe there is something wrong with me. Like maybe I am perceiving these things. Maybe I'm blowing things out of proportion. That was what I got a lot. You know, you're just blowing this out of proportion. It really isn't that big of a deal.
yeah.
And you start to believe it. Yeah,
Well, yeah, because you gotta think you're young at the time, so you're impressionable at that time, so you're not really sure what to think. Now, was he older than you at the time
just
when
two
you guys
years
got married?
older.
Okay,
Just
so
two.
he's a
Yeah,
little bit older than you. So he had, maybe he'll say he had a little 2 more years experience. He's that
yeah,
against you as well. Well, I'm older than you, so I know things. I know all these things better than you, kind of thing.
right.
And stuff like that. So
They're always the smartest person in the room. You know,
that's
their ideas are, and it's interesting if they have an accomplishment, it could be the smallest thing. It must be celebrated in grand fashion. You know, whereas if you have an accomplishment, it could be the greatest thing in the world, but it's like, oh, that's not really anything. You know,
yeah, they're
so
trying to dial it down.
everything they do is just over the top. You know, yeah, it's
So
they need praise all the time.
yeah, yeah, that's right. And I'm laughing because I'm like, it's so funny because when you say it, it's like, oh yeah, your stuff's just really minute because I can feel that 100%, man.
Mhm.
Like I feel it, I know, and I'm like, damn, it feels great to know somebody else has experienced the same thing because then you feel less like alone, and the more
Right.
people you hear say the same things, it's like, damn, I can relate to that. And a lot of people feel like that way you can connect with people too because you're like, well, now this person is one of me. So when it
Well,
comes to the book, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
I
cut
was
you
just
off.
gonna say, you know, it makes you realize that there are other people out there, and then you feel, you know, you don't feel so strange about it. You think I think it makes people more willing to open up about these issues.
I think that's a great point you say that because on the show here, I had a gentleman named Sean come on, and he was like, at first he was so skeptic. He's like, "Hey, nobody's gonna listen to my story." Someone actually heard his story and came on a couple weeks later and was like, "Yeah, I heard Sean's story. Me and my girlfriend listened to this episode, man. Now, how do I get on the show? Because now I want to be a part of this thing. I want to start sharing now because I heard his story." And I tell people all the time, if one of you changes just one person's life, that's it. You've done enough right there because that one person will go tell everybody what they heard. Oh, well, I heard Sean's episode and then direct them to that one. And then I was on the show, and they're giving you all the free press you want right there because they're doing word of mouth for you.
Right, right. If you can just help one person. it can move mountains. It really can.
Yeah, and you know what I was leading into my question was it's for the book. Ever since you published the book, how many I'm sure you got a lot of people message you, "Hey Mia, I can 100% relate with you." And it had to feel good to find out that you weren't the only person out there as these people are sending you messages and saying how much they love the book and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. You feel more validated.
Mhm.
You don't feel like such a one-off. It's very validating. At the same time, it's very disheartening to hear how many people are in these relationships. And it never occurred to me that this was like I guess you could almost call it an epidemic. It never occurred to me that this was a problem out there, that people were living my life out there, and that it was really an issue. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to know that people feel like they can reach out and tell their story, but it's also sad that there are so many people living this life.
Yeah, and it's hard to get out of those because a lot of people feel like they're trapped in the situation or I
Yes.
can't do anything about it, have nowhere to go. And that's the other thing they'll do. They'll make you feel like you have no place to go. Like mine, she used to sever relationships with people. I don't know if your ex did
Oh,
that to you,
yes.
but
Yeah, they don't
yep.
like you to have any support. The
Mm-hmm.
more they can isolate you, the better. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people will say if they've been in relationships with a narcissist, they didn't have any friends or very few friends. And that's by design, because if you have a big support group, they see that as the narcissist sees that as a threat. They want you all to themselves. They want 100% of your attention 24/7. They don't want to share you with anyone. And that gets to be an issue when you have children,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they become jealous of their own kids. So yeah, isolation is definitely a tactic that they use.
Yeah, and that's what it felt like at times. She severed a lot of relationships for me and things like that, so I can relate. So, what can I ask you? What was your point where you're like, you woke up and just said, "I'm just done with this crap. I've had enough." What was this thing that just caused it to be like, you just snapped in your brain. You're like, you know what? I'm effing done with this. I'm out.
Yeah, I think I felt that way for a few years, but just really couldn't envision a path out.
Yeah,
And really, it came down to the physical symptoms that the stress was causing in my body. I was suffering from chronic pain, headaches,
yeah,
stomach aches. I felt sick all the time.
yeah.
It was a horrible feeling, and I just really felt like I don't know if I can survive this much more. I mean, and you just don't think stress can affect you to that degree, but it absolutely can.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it takes sometimes it takes just one thing to trigger you to be like, you know what, I'm done and just have enough and finally say you're done. And I
Yeah.
think that's the hardest part for a lot of people. And for me it was because for so long she had me so trapped in like I didn't even recognize myself after looking back at it. I was like, man, I didn't see all these things for what it was, but one of my buddies is actually the reason why I got out because he was like, "Hey, man, you need to wake up and start looking at what's going on here. Something isn't right." And she didn't like him, and it leads right into what you said: is that they don't like those other people because they find them as threats. Because he was like, "Hey, man, look at these things that you're finding in your brain that are happening, and it's just like." As you go through it, you start really piecing the puzzle together of what's going on, really. And then by the time I broke free, a couple of people, honestly, I'll be honest with you, a couple of people tried to help me early on. One guy actually almost went crazy trying to help me because she was so good at just causing friction between us. We almost started having a fist fight between the two of us. That's how bad she had us at each
Wow.
other's throat.
Yeah, they can do that. They sure
Mm,
can. And the other thing is, when you're in the middle of it, you can't see it for what it is. They
exactly.
use this. There's a tactic or something that happens called trauma bonding, which really is the same thing as, if you've heard of Stockholm syndrome,
Yep.
where
Yep.
you will find yourself defending this person. And I did
I
that. I was just propelling this lie that he was living. I wanted everybody to think he was great, and I was helping him with his lie, basically.
yeah.
You just want everybody to think that everything's fine. So you get into this, and you just can't see what's going on around you until you get out.
Until I knew what Stockholm syndrome was before. I didn't have any idea, but that's exactly what I did too. And it's crazy because you don't realize it until you get out of it and then you're looking at it and you're like, wow, I was so naive to know what's going on. I'm defending this person and trying to get people to like this person. And then
Yes.
themselves are trying not to be like those people for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I would always, if anyone brought anything up, any concern, I got very defensive,
Yeah.
and I would make excuses for him, and say, "Oh, well, he's just he's had a stressful time at work, and he's not usually like this." And I would instantly go on the defense every time, rather than listening and saying, yeah, I guess, but and I was lying to myself. And I think deep down somewhere inside, I knew I was lying to myself, but at the time, it just felt like the easiest path. It was the
Yeah.
safest way to not make any waves.
Yeah, because you didn't want to cause any problems for yourself
Right.
and things like that. And then everybody else sees it and then you don't see it. And they keep telling you and you just think they're just nitpicking things. And oh
Yeah.
God, man. Me, I can 100% agree. I feel I like I've been through the same things you have. So I could totally relate. And I'm like, now I'm more excited to read this book. I'm like, man, because it'll be so great to read. I feel like it's gonna be a fantastic read either way for me. And
I
I've been
hope
reading more
so.
books
Yeah.
and things. Oh my God. I like, memoirs. I never even thought about reading one. I'm actually reading one called The Mansectomy. I've always wanted. And I know when I tell people that title, they just look at me kind of funny. I'm like, trust me, this thing it's a journey through breast cancer. And I was like, this is like nothing like you would think it is. And
Wow.
it's phenomenal and things like that too.
Yeah,
And
it's just it's a great way to get, like I say, an insider point of view, and
yeah,
all those things that aren't academic. It's just real life. Getting to read real life. There's
yeah.
something validating about that.
Yeah, and it's great. It has to feel good too for you because then you're trying to help people when the book was released, and you because there's two things happen when you release something. You're thinking one, it could either flop, or this thing can go shot up through the roof. You know what I'm saying? You never know, and a lot of times it's like, especially your situation, you're like, well, I'm putting this out there. I don't know if somebody's going to recognize this story as something. You know what I mean? Or you got to be careful of those kind of things as well.
Yeah.
Just given the whole situation of what you dealt with and how you're trying to release your story while people knowing exactly, what's going on kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely scary.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, I mean, memoir writing is interesting because you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And coming out of this kind of marriage for 29 years, I mean, I wasn't good at being vulnerable. I was good at putting walls up.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest challenge, really, is just having to get honest, really be
Yeah.
honest. And really, I think a piece of this that people don't think about, when you get out of a situation like this, there's an embarrassment factor.
Yeah.
And it's just not something that's talked about, but it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to, on some level, to tell my story, but I've had learned to get over it.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing to admit that I accepted this kind of behavior for 29 years.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing that my marriage failed. And I think we have to have some understanding of these victims, that there's shame involved in their story.
Yeah. And that's the thing when people come on this show too. It's like I tell them all the same thing. I said, listen, it's just you and me here. Somebody starts acting foolish or somebody says something, they're gone instantly. Like, don't feel embarrassed to come on here. And I tell people when you come on here, I said, you get ready because you're going to share your life story on here with someone, and it's going to be just you and I, and it's just the two of us. Don't worry about anybody else. Just relax. You'll be all right. And they all say the same thing. If the conversation starts going, they're like, "Oh man, this is the greatest feeling ever." Because when you put it out there, so many people are going to see this now. And I know I had one person, he had put his story out there, and some people had seen it because he's big on TikTok, and they were like, "Damn, dude, I would have never known." Was the number one comment he got about things. I mean, he had a lot of suicidal ideation and thing happening, but you'd never know because you look at him,
Right.
go based on like society would look at him, say, oh, hey, he's got the perfect lifestyle. He look good, all them things like that. Has MLB star. He's going to be part of the Major League Baseball Association. And it really wasn't. He was struggling along the way, and people had no idea this poor guy was struggling at all. And it felt great afterwards too. He had messaged me afterwards and said, Pete, oh my God, dude, I want to do this again. That was so great. I felt so empowered because you gave me a chance to put my story out there. And you're kind of inspiring me now. I might want to write my own book at this point, do my own memoir, because I think it'd be something interesting. Because I think at the same time, I think I am going to feel that shame of that embarrassment of allowing this kind of stuff to happen. Because when you go back
Yeah.
and really look at it, but I think if my story could help somebody, why not? I feel like, if I can get to that one person, I'd say I won the battle right there alone.
That's right. That's right. And I think it has it memoir writing, I think did help me um with that whole embarrassment and that
Yeah,
shame. It's sort of like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to put my story out there. And yes, it's embarrassing and quite honestly, there's probably a lot of people that know me that are not going to believe it. I mean, they're just
yeah,
they're simply not going to they're going to say I don't believe her.
yeah,
And you just have to plow through and say I don't care. One thing
yeah,
the narcissist will do when you leave, and this is very typical, and my ex did it and is still doing it, is they launch something called a smear campaign.
yeah,
And it was no sooner was I out the door than he was out talking to everybody we knew.
yeah,
He making up these grand stories about how he's the victim. And of course, everybody thinks he's great and he's the greatest guy in the world. And
yeah,
of course they believe him. Why they have no reason not to believe him. Um, and so that's been hard to come to terms with that I now have all these people out there that think who knows what about me because he's out there telling lies to protect his image. It's all about their image.
yeah.
So yeah, you have to kind of get some thick skin and realize that there's going to be, I mean, you're going to have people turn on you, and you know, it's okay.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking too, it's like the aftermath, like all the psychological damage he's trying to commit, trying to turn everybody against you, make you look like you're the enemy. And
Hmm.
I experienced it myself, but your situation, like 29 years is a lot. Like that's just wow. And I get that too. When people start reading it, they're like, whoa, hold on. Like this isn't right. This he'd never do that, like that whole
Right.
what is it? That whole Cat Williams joke. You ever heard that one where he's talking about you always have that one friend that always stands up for you? Oh, he'd never do that. Was the one comment that got made in the joke was he's like, oh, I've known him for 2 weeks. He never would have done that. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm thinking about when you
Yeah.
say that, because it's like, it's funny because it's like that happens all the time. Like we make jokes about it, but that's really how this goes. So like
Right.
they build themselves on this pillar. So it's like, oh, well, Mia's lying. She ain't telling all the truth and everything like that. We've all done that when we were younger. Oh no,
Yeah.
Mia's lying, man. She's just making up stories about me. You're out there telling people, oh no, this guy's doing this and this and this. No, no, he'd never do that. Come on now.
It's hard because I don't really have I mean, I can't really defend myself, with
Yeah,
all these people that he's talking to because, first of all, I didn't realize it was a race.
yeah,
Apparently, it was a race, it was a contest. I didn't know I was just trying to get through the divorce. I didn't know we were supposed to be out there like gaining allies and
yeah,
building our little armies. That was the farthest thing from my mind. I was just wanting to get this divorce done,
yeah,
but he's out there talking to, and I joke, but it may not be a joke. I joke that he built a spreadsheet, of everybody we knew,
he
and
probably could have,
probably is
honestly.
sitting there just checking off the boxes. Yeah, I talked to them. I talked to them. So, there's really no point in me trying to defend myself because they all think he's great, and so that's been hard. But you do have to
Yeah,
let it go, and you do have to realize that my life is so much better now, and if they all
yeah,
want to be on his quote unquote side, um, let them go. Let them
yeah.
go.
Let them drink the Kool-Aid, as they like to say.
Yeah.
Let them drink that
Yes.
little Kool-Aid action they're over there doing. That's what I like to tell people.
That's exactly what's yeah.
And it,
Very,
and it,
very accurate. Yeah.
and you said you had kids too, right? And when you
Yes.
splash kids in there, it gets even worse because now you have to be still connected somewhat to this person because the kids, you can't, just because he's doing this to you doesn't mean he'll do it to the kids. And I think that's what a lot of people understand. The whole term of stay together for the kids never works out. I always tell people the same thing
No.
after my own experience. So
And that is a big reason why I stayed for 29 years. Really,
yeah,
society tells us that you don't break up your family. You don't
yeah,
want your kids to be children of divorce. And I really thought that that was the best path. So I had good intentions, but looking back, I waited until my kids were grown before I left.
yeah,
Looking back, it was not the right decision, for a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason that my kids only witnessed dysfunction. You know, they did not get to see what a healthy marriage looked like. And,
Everybody listening at
you
home,
know,
listen to what she's saying right now. Understand when you argue in front of your kids, you do all these things in front of your kids. What Mia's saying right now is a powerful statement alone. Is that these kids are watching you, they're studying what you do, and now we know more now that the children are actually watching, mimic what they see. So that they're thinking this is a normal relationship between me and her husband currently when they're doing all these things. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you made a
yeah,
great
no,
point.
yeah, but that is, that's a big piece of it that, society tells us to just keep the family together. But when there's abuse, it's just, those rules are not on the table anymore.
No,
And
I
I,
agree.
I think it's for the kids to witness function and healthy relationships. It's not a good idea to stay. But, alas, I did stay, and I wish I hadn't made that decision. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I hate to see other people feeling like they have to stay for the kids, because it's really not always in the best interest of the kids to do so.
Yeah, and it's really not. I could tell you from my own experience too. Um, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Well, in my situation, she was never home. I was always home. I'd work like 45 hours a week, come home, I'd deal with the kids, and I'd work overnight, so I'd be working third shift. So I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. I was drinking. I was having a
Wow.
lot of rage outbursts and all these things. I didn't realize some of these things were because when I was a kid, my mom abandoned me when I was 10 at my dad's doorstep. And now you think that's not a big deal. Okay. A
It
lot of people
stays
don't
with
think.
you.
Exactly. It stays with you, and it just it caused so many problems until I'm 39 now. So like until a year ago, I didn't even address these problems. But luckily, my wife is stubborn and told me, "Look, guess what? Either A, you figure your shit out, or B, I'm leaving." And
Mhm,
I was not the
mhm.
most pleasant. And now I realize and reflect on it a lot with people and saying, like, I've been there. I know what it's like. I've been on the other side of the coin and done some of these things, and I'm ashamed. Like I really am. When I tell the whole story of me, I know I'm gonna feel ashamed, but at the same time, it's gonna feel good that at least I can reflect and admit that I did something wrong. I'm not making up excuses or anything else. I'm just it's time for me to own it. Like I did these things, I've got to deal with these things, and it just is what it is at that point. And on the tail end of it, I don't think a lot of people realize, what it's like when you get out of it. Because after that point, you're trying to still figure out how life works for you because now you don't have this other person in here engaging and causing all these problems for you and things like that. And you're trying to figure out what to do for also battling all these people that are coming after you because he's building that army, quote unquote.
Yes.
I love that, by the way. He's building that army, man, just to come, like, just to smear your name everywhere possible and make you look like you're such a bad person when you just did what exactly was right.
Yeah, and so it's a lot to process when you leave. For me, it was crazy. It was almost the freedom was almost overwhelming. I didn't know what to
Yeah.
do with myself. You wake up in the morning and you think, I can do what I want. I don't have to answer to somebody. I don't have to walk around on eggshells all day long.
Yeah.
Um, so it's you go from being completely confined in this what feels like a prison to being completely free, then it all in just a short amount of time. And yeah, it's hard to know what to do with yourself. There's a lot to process when you leave
Hmm.
one of these people. Yeah.
Definitely. And there's a lot of psychological things that happen afterwards too, from all the abuse and everything else. But at the end of the day, you did what was right, especially for the kids at the end of the day too, because they're seeing all these things, and now they're seeing mom in a different light because now mom's not being the same way, and stuff like
Right.
that.
Yeah, I mean, another thing is when you're married to a narcissist and you have children, the narcissist does not allow you to be the kind of parent you want to be.
Hmm.
So I was not able to be the kind of mom I wanted to be for my kids. I was he constantly wanted to like pit me against the kids, and it was sort of setting me up to make me choose, who do you
Hmm.
pick, me or the kids? That's
Hmm.
terrible. And then, I was on edge so much of the time. I was living in this fight or flight,
Yeah.
which didn't make me like a fun mom. I mean, I was this stressed out mom all the time. And so I regret that I couldn't be the type of parent that I wanted to be. And it goes back to, you stay for the kids, but you're not giving your best to the kids. You're just not
Exactly.
able to because the narcissist is taking so much from you.
Yeah, and it's like that with me and my ex now. The kids were living with me at first, and I'm like, now I'm a single dad, 3 girls. I'm having to figure everything on my own. And my dad, let me tell you, Mia, my dad told me for the first time ever in my life, I've never heard this man utter these words. He said, "I'm very proud of you." And I was like,
Wow.
huh? I was like, and he said it because he goes, "Well, I'm proud of you because you're raising 3 kids on your own. I don't think I could do it." He's like, "I don't know how you're doing it, man." He said, "But I am so proud that you're doing it. You're out there handling your own business and things like that."
That's
And
awesome.
and it was like I had to learn things I never thought I'd have to learn. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of guys, the macho persona is like, "Well, you can't do this, you can't do that," because these are all things that traditionally the woman in the relationship would talk to them about. But it's like, well, I got no choice now. Suck it up, Buttercup. Here we go.
Yeah.
You got to learn these things,
You're the
and it
parent. Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
she would do,
it's hard.
and not to cut you off, and like I said, she would basically weaponize the kids though against me.
Yeah, I see my ex doing that, not real directly. I mean, my kids are grown, but
Yeah,
I think that kind of never ends,
yeah,
he still is trying to step up and be the better parent. He's trying
mm-hmm,
to kind of overwhelm with gifts and all these grand gestures, so that he
yep,
wants the attention on him. So yeah, definitely. I mean, even, my kids being in their 20s, I still see that he's still kind of making this a contest.
yeah. And you're saying it all right. That's exactly what I do with too now. Is that they actually live with her now, so they got older, and they wanted mom, and I'm like, I'm not going to deny that. If you want mom, that's fine. But now they don't even talk to me hardly. I'm the bad guy all of a sudden, and I'm just like, all right,
Yeah,
well, I'm here. Like at this point now, what is it? I got some advice, and somebody said, love them at a distance. Then if they know where you're at, they know where to find you. You don't cut communication.
exactly. Yeah,
They'll know where to find you if they want to talk to you. It's like I'm such an evil person, but you don't know on the other side of the coin of the things I dealt with, and they're too young. They're still, one of them's like 15. So she's getting to that age where I could have an honest conversation that she would understand a little bit. And the other two are younger because we had twins. So they're 12 right now. So they'll be 13 this year. And they're still too young to know a lot of stuff, but I think they're a
right.
lot smarter than we give these kids credit for. They understand a lot more than we realize. And
I
I'm
think
and
they
after,
do.
hmm they do.
Yeah, they do. And I think that they observe more and than we
Yeah.
think they do. So I mean, you never know that they could come around, as they get older, and it starts to all kind of fall into place, and they start to understand the dynamics, a little bit better. That, who knows?
Yeah, you're right though, if you think about it, because that's really at this point what my me and my wife were discussing. She's like, at this point, they'll come around when they want to, because she had dealt with a similar situation with her kids. Her ex was trying to turn the kids against her. And I when we got married, she moved away from the whole situation she was in. It's a very toxic relationship area. She was still in the same town. His family's well rooted there. And I kept telling her, I'm like, you just got to get out of there, man. It's not worth staying there. What's left to stay there? Yeah, the kids are there, but they're grown kids. They can come see you if they want to see you. Like, you need to get away from this. I kept telling her, hey, you need to get away. And ever since she's left, you could just see her confidence just building up. And it sounds like this is gonna sound funny when I say this, but she pays bills on her own now, certain bills, and she gets all excited because, hey man, she's never done this before, mind you, because
Yeah,
he had complete control of everything.
exactly. I can relate to that so much because I'm kind of in that situation right now. I literally live about a half a mile from my ex. Now,
Yeah,
I never see him, never talk to him. We have
that's
zero
good.
contact, but still, it creates a toxic environment.
Hmm.
And people will say to me, "Well, you don't ever bump into him, or you don't ever talk to him. What's the big deal?" But it is a big deal. There's something, and I keep telling people around me, my mental health, I think it's affecting my mental health just
Yeah,
being in his presence, right? I mean, I go to the grocery store and I kind of worry, like, I really don't want to bump into this guy. I just don't
yeah,
want to I don't want to go there. And so I'm in that situation as well, where I'm looking at relocating
yeah,
because it feels like, I need to make that break. I need to get out of this area where he's at, and all these people he's turned against me. It feels healthier to maybe relocate,
me,
so
it's
I,
gonna
I
feel amazing.
totally
I'm
get
telling you
it.
right now, it's gonna feel
Yeah,
amazing, trust me.
you feel like you can sort of rebuild your life from the ground up, and have a you're just not to me, like, my whole area just feels toxic now,
Yeah, I bet it
and
does.
and it shouldn't. I mean, I get people say that doesn't make any sense, but and I see why people could say that, but unless you're in the situation, it's hard to understand how that feels,
Yeah.
being, right there with living amongst your ex, even though you don't see him. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I get
But
that.
But Mia, you're 100% correct though. Like I said, for her it was the same situation. The town she grew up in, it's like this the only thing she knew. So she was anchored there because she's like, well, I don't know many people. I'm like, well, I think it's time for you to break away and you'll see what I'm talking about. Even and she had something happen where she was told, hey, you need to get out of here, restart yourself, reposition yourself away from everything, just kind of like you're talking about doing. And you notice, like I said, the confidence levels up and she starts realizing it. She'll be self-aware. You'll start seeing it for yourself too. And you'll start saying, okay, hell yeah, this is a way better decision. I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to deal worrying about running into these people and things like
Right.
that. And
Yeah. I don't like just, thinking that, I'm gonna run into him at the grocery store.
hmm
And would it be the end of the world if I bumped into him at the grocery store? No, but it's just, I feel like, why should I put myself in that position?
exactly.
I just don't wanna have to worry about it. So,
I know I agree
yeah,
with you
it's
100%.
somebody who has been abusive and is that toxic. I think if you can just get away from them, it's really probably the healthiest thing to do for your mental health.
100% correct, Mia. You're right, because like I said, I can speak from experience. I moved away from mine, and she technically moved away from me because I moved at first, and I left and everything like that. And like I said, for my ex, I told her the same. Like my wife now, I told her the same thing. Just like get away, rebuild, restart, and like now she's getting better wages. She's getting paid more what her worth is and things. And it's all great to watch her just get this self confidence build up because she starts realizing that, hey, at the end of the day, you're right. And it's not about me being right, though. It's I want her to build that confidence. Like, hey, look what you're doing versus where you were at. You were at
Yeah.
such a low point, and she's made comments too about it because she's like, I've been at such a low point. Now I'm at this high point. Now I'm getting, paid my worth and things like this. And I'm like, now you're seeing it. And she's rebuilding relationships with other people that she'd lost a long time ago and she's been through a lot herself, man. Like whenever she finally does her episode and she comes on here, it may be a private conversation, but it may be one of those things I'll send you that you'd watch privately so you can see.
Yeah.
But trust me, there's some crazy stuff that's going to be revealed. But you could relate to the feeling though of what she's talking about with like when she
Yes.
got away. And it's so great to watch. And I hope for the best for you, honestly, Mia. Like I said, I know exactly what you're dealing with getting away from that situation 100% would better. Now the kids are even older too. It's like you can get away, and the kids aren't anchoring you down technically a little bit.
Right.
You don't feel like you have to stay there. So more, I 100% so excited for you to get away from that kind of thing because it'll be great to hear. Hey, I've moved away from all this stuff, and and we all want to hear it because we want you to win at this point because we're like, yeah, come on, yeah, you can do this.
Yeah, yeah, it is, it's a slow process regaining
It
your
is.
confidence and just figuring out who you are. You really have to, learn who you are after you get out
Mm-hmm.
of this kind of relationship because you have given yourself, your whole identity to this other person. So,
Yeah,
it's a lot of rebuilding, but, it is a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun.
it is.
So, yeah, I just would encourage anybody who's in a relationship with a narcissist. I mean, just don't waste any more of your time,
Yeah, exactly.
get out and find yourself again.
Exactly. Me is 100% correct, guys. If you're in that situation, just get out. I know it feels like you have nowhere to go, but there's always some way, man. Don't tell yourself you can't. Always speak it into fruition. Like, hey, I'm gonna get out of this situation. I'm gonna do something different. I'm getting away from it. And we and I are both living proof that it's possible to do it. Is it rough? Oh, it's rough. I'll be honest. I'll be the first one to tell you. I lost everything. I lost every single thing, and so has my wife. She's lost everything twice. And now it's just like you start rebuilding things little by little. But at the same time she teaches me not to be so attached to things because when I left my ex, I had this weird OCD complex I picked up where like I'd have those like you ever see those like pop figures, those little guys with the big old heads and things.
Yes, yes.
I had 300 plus of these things.
Whoa.
Funny story. I was moving them one day and my ex had come over to see the kids and she came to the room and it was just like people don't realize it because you don't see it happening, but other people do. Like I started really start acting weird, and my friend was talking to me on the phone. She was like, "Dude, are you okay?" Like she walked away and she could hear her walk away. It's like, "Hey, are you alone in the room now?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Why?" She goes, "Are you okay?" Because you went into this mind trance of like you were just mumbling to yourself, moving these figures back and forth, just kept sliding back and forth.
Yeah.
And when I moved them, I had like 7 boxes of these things, and I was just like so obsessed, like I'd freak out, like, "Oh no, don't touch my things. I don't want to lose them." You're like go in a complete panic mode. Like I get so worked up. And now it's like I don't have. I've been slowly letting go a lot of this stuff because I've really had hoarding problems. When me and my
Yeah,
ex
but
met,
all of that is, related to anxiety, like anxiety
hmm
issues. That's like I thought how
yeah.
we cope, right? To do stuff like that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, now I cherish certain things. Like Erica sent me a book and she signed the book, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep that forever now because she sent it to me. Like she written in the book, a personal and like wrote a little something in the book, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna keep it. That and
Yeah,
then people send me certain things, and I don't want to get as attached to other things, but I'm attached to things that people send me because I appreciate it. Like it's like, hey, you took the time to send this to me. Of course, I'm gonna keep it. Other than that,
yeah,
it's like, but I centralize it to like I have a china case in my living room and I center it to just there. So if it doesn't fit in there, then it's time to start purging it on my own.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I've gotten there's so much stuff. It was crazy, man. Like I had to move to a smaller space, and I've got so much crap in here. It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah, but I think, that, it's just it's our way of wanting to control something because
Yeah.
like with a narcissist, you are never in control. They control everything. And I know I had,
Hmm.
you know, those similar feelings that I just need something. I need to be able to feel like I can control something.
Yeah.
So that anxiety just it does crazy things to you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm 100% can vouch for that one. I had a whole room of just random items. Like I get people have collections, but mine was more of just random things I picked up that I liked. I was like, okay, I like this. And then I have the power to buy it now because now this other person isn't telling me, no, you can't have theirs. They're
Yeah.
squabbling at you about, oh, you know what I mean? They want to attack you by having, oh, well, you need to stop doing that or you need to stop doing this. And
Yeah.
now my wife's teaching me like, like, hey, if you have it, you have to do something with it. Like I buy a lot of hats and I had all these hats, and she's like, "Are you going to wear these things? Or are you just going to keep them in a box somewhere?" The whole point of buying them is wear them. It's other
Right.
people that sound like she's picking on me, but at the same time, your partner should be your harshest critic, honestly. Like they
Sure.
should be there to tell you, hey, you're fucking up. You need to be told you
Yeah.
fucking up. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't realize that's how it should go. A lot of people like to be coddled, and I don't like that. Like
Right.
she'll tell me straight out, like, hey, listen, bud, you got the wrong one here. And I think that's what I love about her the most is that she's so like brutally honest with me, but at the same time, she's helping me grow because she's pointing out these things I used to do, these really bad behaviors. Hey, listen, they ain't gonna fly with me. It's funny how she does it. She goes because she likes to say, "Hey, homeboy, we ain't doing that." And it's so funny when she says it though, because
Yeah,
I
I mean, if
kind of
if we
laugh.
if we can't have that honesty,
Hmm.
it's just and that's why with a narcissist, you can't have that honesty because you
Yeah.
can never give them advice or criticize or
Hmm.
tell them a different way to do things. They
Yeah.
will
Right.
explode, so there can be no honesty there. So
Their
it's
head will quote
just
unquote
very
explode, guys.
unhealthy. Yes, yes. There's no honesty, and so it's
Yeah.
just it's so toxic.
It is, and you don't see it. Like I said, you're kind of blinded by what do they say? The phrase that goes, "You're blinded by love." A lot of times, and you think it's
Hmm.
love, and it's not love, but you want it to be because you're willing it on so much because you're like, oh, now you're so attached to that person, and afterwards, it's like I didn't start dating for like 6, 7 years afterwards, at least, because
Yeah,
I was so scared to get into a relationship because I'm like, what if I get into another one of these situations where they start controlling me or I was talking to certain people, just talking to people, and sometimes when it felt like it was getting to that situation, I go shut down. I'm like, yeah, okay, and then stop talking, and I
yeah.
ghost them, quote unquote. Like I'd stop talking because I'm like I'm afraid because I'm starting getting weird vibes. Like, yeah, I don't like this. This is starting to feel like my old situation. No, you need to stay away. Like keep the cooties away, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, we learn what not to look for.
Hmm.
So and I think we, you know, it's hard to trust,
Yeah,
and it's hard to trust ourselves too, coming out of these relationships because we're told for years on end that we mess everything up, everything's our
yeah,
fault, and so then we think, well, I don't know if I can trust my own decision making.
yeah.
So we have to learn how to trust ourselves again.
Let me ask you a question. You're constantly questioning your decisions, like, like, oh, should I do this? I don't know. When it comes to like, even it comes to like even doing like small things like purchasing certain things, like, yeah, I don't know if I really need this. And, you ever have that kind of
Yeah,
inner conflict?
definitely, yeah, and I still do. Like
Hmm.
over a year out of this marriage, I still do. I still feel like
Yeah.
I need permission. I'm always looking for permission,
Yeah.
um, but I'm getting better. It takes time to figure all this out. But yeah, definitely, I have that same issue, but it's getting better. I think as more time goes by.
Well, thank you for making me not feel crazy now, because I think I'm the only one that has that inner monologue. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
because I've done that before. It's like I always do it now, even debate about it. I'm like, yeah, and I'm becoming very minimalist when it comes to certain things. But there's certain things I attach to that I keep, I really like, and and stuff like that. And like I said, when you get to relationships, it's just weird because when you get back into one and you start getting serious, it's like then you start having those self doubts. And I did at first with me and my wife when we were engaged. I had a moment where I had a panic attack at work because I was freaking out because she was there and I was here, and my ex cheated on me. So in my back of my mind, I'm like, what is she doing over there? She's not with me,
Yeah.
so I can't see, and my wife understood completely what I was dealing with. And she was so cool about it. And it was just like it blew my mind because I'm like, I'm acting like a complete goddamn fool over here, and you're acting like this
But
is
she
totally okay
understood.
with him. Yeah, she
Yeah,
understood a
she
lot more than I
understood.
realized. And that made the bond stronger for us too, because I'm like, yeah, I'm making the right decision, choosing to marry this woman because she gets it. She understands the things I've been through, and she understands what I'm feeling. And she talked me off the ledge too. And she was like, hey, listen, relax, I understand. I explained my point of view of what happened in the situation. And she was like, okay, well, I get what you're thinking. And I'm sorry that's what happened to you, but I 100% know. And I just had this sense of relief. Like I knew I could trust what she's telling me,
Yeah,
even though we're
yeah.
not in the same city. Cause I used to drive like 2.5 hours to go see her all the time. And people laugh at me. I'm like, yeah, I work 5 days a week, get off that morning and go out there. The kids
Wow.
would stay with my parents sometimes, or I had a roommate at the time who was a good friend of mine who I thought was a real friend. But I go visit all the time, where she come and stay with me, kind of thing like that. It's hard too when you bring somebody else into it. Then
Yeah,
the kids are like, because then my ex was turning like the kids against her, and she hadn't done
I
anything wrong.
bet
She's not.
so. Yeah.
She's like, it's like, or Mia's trying to be my new mom. And it's like, Mia's not trying to be your new mom, man. She's not. She already told you that. She's
Yeah.
like, you got your own mom. I understand what you're talking about, guys. Like, I understand. I'm like, I'm not here to be your mom. You guys can come talk to me about stuff. You can ask me questions. We can be friendly to each other, but I'm not your mom. You have a mom. And she
Right.
clearly stated that. And that's the same way I was like with her little one, who I'd love and adore this little girl. Like, she's not mine, but I love and adore this kid. And she's about 4 years old now. Greatest little girl in the world. Always excited to see me all the time. And and usually at first it was kind of standoffish because I was like, I don't know, because I'm like,
Mhm.
this isn't my flesh and blood. But I've also the nature I adopted is that even though they're not my flesh and blood, they're still family to me. So
Right.
we're by marriage, she's technically still my daughter, even though she has her dad. And I don't want her dad to ever feel like I'm replacing him, because I'm not. Listen, you got dad, I'm Peter. That's it. Or
Yeah.
whatever you want, whatever nickname she wants to call me, or whatever. She can call me dad. And it's weird when it happens to me. It's like it's the weirdest thing because it trips me out a little bit. But if at first it really weirded me out because I'm like, oh, I don't want this guy to think I'm trying to replace him at all. I don't want him to
Right.
think, and you always think about that in the back window of it. You're like, oh no, I don't want to. I don't want people to feel like I'm trying to replace him, because I know what that's like when you bring somebody else into the picture. Because my dad remarried when we were younger, and stuff like that. So like I had that constant fear that if like, hey, this woman's trying to take over. So I know what they were thinking,
Yeah.
and I'm like, guys, it's not the case.
Yeah, it's that's complicated. It gets
Mm,
complicated. Yeah, it's sort of like my ex is has a new partner now. And it's sort of that whole she's trying to be all that, for the kids, even though my kids are grown, but still
yeah,
that kind of thing never ends. It's just even with as kids get older, it's still that same dynamic. So
yeah.
yeah, it gets tricky, and you just have to hope that it all pans out, but definitely a complicated dynamic there.
It is. It does, especially that too, especially when they're younger. And then it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when you have to actively see each other, which I don't really see her much at all either, because she lives like 400 miles south of me.
Okay.
So she's away from me. So we have a good amount of distance between the two of us and things like
But you're
that. But she'll
still
send
co-parenting, and that's
she
that's
I
not
try.
easy.
I
Yeah.
try to stay in touch as much as I can. It's so hard because she's not really forthcoming with information. So I'm constantly asking about them, like, hey. And then they have their own numbers, but she does this thing where she's changing the numbers a lot for some of them. And it's just like she has these weird
Oh,
behaviors. So like, she's always constantly doing weird things, but we always say, oh, it's just what she used to do, or this is what she does. Cause it's the same pattern of things she does. She does the same things that we all knew she does,
just
and she
controlling, yeah,
and
controlling the
she and
narrative
she'd
all the
always trying
time.
to and she tries to one up me, like you were saying before about
Mhm.
gifts and things. Like she bought them brand new like systems and things like that. Me, I'm not buying you a brand new system. I'm sorry. I'll buy you one for y'all to share because y'all need to learn how to share with each other. and things like that. And I'll teach you facts of life. Like I was trolling them one time just to show them, like, hey, listen, when you go online, these are things you're going to deal with. And I
Yeah.
was going hard. Like I went hard. I'm going to give you a scenario how this is going to work. And I got into a game with them and I just started trolling them real hard. I said, this is the type of people you want to mute. Like if you run into these situations, because they were playing Fortnite with someone at the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
God knows when we got on the internet, you know what kind of people show up, man. It's just,
Yeah.
and it's like, guys, this is what you're gonna deal with. And like, if you start hearing this kind of stuff, come grab me or just mute them. Like, obviously the
Yeah.
older one mute them, the younger two come grab me and I'll say something like, oh, listen, I'll mute them, but I wouldn't say anything. Like I probably would say something. Normally I want to go in there and get like, hey, let's go. You want to talk some trash? Let's go, man. I got you. Let's do this. But I got to remember at the same time, I'm trying to teach these young ladies and that this is not acceptable behavior. And I'm like, one of my friends is like, man, you're kind of harsh. I'm like, I'm trying to teach them that, when you're on the internet, these are the things you're going to run into. You don't have to accept these things.
Right.
Is it a little harsh? Yeah, it's a little harsh, but you got to make sure they understand these are the kind of people that are out there, man. You don't know what these other people on their side of the mirror are doing, or
And you've
if
got
they're
to set
weirdos or
those
they're predators.
boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and learn
So,
how to set boundaries. And I think a lot of times, we don't know how to set boundaries.
exactly.
And so, yeah, then that's how you get taken taken advantage of by these people, by having these very weak boundaries or no boundaries at all.
Right. And I couldn't say it any better myself. Yeah. All right, Mia. As we get ready to wrap up, first off, I wanted to thank you for coming. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think it's
Thank
great you're
you.
here. And I'm so excited you came because like I said, when I saw your profile, I was like, we discussed the other things, off camera of the other stuff. I was just like, I'm interested now. I got to know more. And after talking to you, it feels so great to know that I'm not the only person that dealt with some of these things. And
Yes.
it's great to know and to hear that you're doing so well now and that you're making these changes. So, first off, I wanted to say congratulations. I'm glad you did what you did. I'm glad you put the book out there because obviously you're changing lives with that story. And like I said, I'm going to read it. I'll let you know what I think of it too, and things
Yeah.
like that.
Thank you so much.
And the fact you're taking the steps to get away from the situation, more power to you, man. I am so excited for you. I cannot wait to see you thrive even more
Thank
and things
you.
like that. So before we wrap up, I want you to go ahead and plug your socials and things like that. I know you're on TikTok, X, and
Yes,
I know you had a website as well, right?
I do. I have a website. It's miajhanks.com. And then I'm on TikTok. I'm pretty active on TikTok, and the handle is at NPD, which stands for narcissistic personality disorder. NPD and me.
Yeah.
And then there's a link on my website to purchase my book on Amazon. So yeah,
Awesome.
please check it out.
Yeah, and guys, also if you go into her show links, you can see the other episodes of other podcasts she's done, which I thought was really cool. I was like, that's really cool. She took takes the videos and puts them on there for you guys to see. So you can see some other videos, interviews, if you guys are interested and stuff like that. I know I seen yours through Instagram too. Somebody else had done an interview with you, and
Yes,
I
yes,
like
I'm on
so I saw that
Instagram.
too. Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
yeah. So, guys, I'll put all those in the bio for you down below. I know Mia just told you about them, but I'll have all the links for all you guys are listening to this, the audio side. There is going to be links in the bio to this and stuff like that. So you guys can go check out our website. And, if you want to show some support, say, hey, Mia, I saw your interview, or hey, Mia, I read the book. She'd love to hear that. She wants to know that you guys are seeing these things and your story is touching people's hearts and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yes, please. And thank you so much for having me on.
oh, no, Mia, once again, thank you so much. It was great having you guys. And as always, you guys already know I'm Pete for Anxiety. I'm pretty much everything. I'm on X, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, pretty much everything. I'm like V's ever you want me to be, okay? And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind of act you could do could save somebody's life, or hell, you can even make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety signing out saying, hey, don't ask how your day is. Ask how your mental health is today.